Hey everybody, welcome back to James Draws Everything. Continuing today, drawing every country's flag in the entire world, of course. And going back into Central Asia today, you'll be doing the small country of Kyrgyzstan, right? The hardest country in the world to spell, responsible for a lot of failed geography test scores. It does have kind of a neat flag though. Actually, I like this one quite a bit. So we'll get into all of that. Also gonna be talking a little bit about color revolutions today. I know what you're saying, James. Didn't you already do a video on color revolutions? Right? It's like where you use the shade from like the opposite side of the color. No, you're talking about color theory. No. We're gonna be talking about color revolutions. All right. So a lot more sinister than that. Okay, and Kyrgyzstan, very rich in natural resources, a lot of nomadic peoples there. One of those places that's not really, I mean, it's kind of a stretch like to call it a country, right? It's mainly just kind of a crossroads of, ancient civilizations. Oh yeah, and I get to use my fun little wheel today. Always love the excuse to bust this thing out. And what was I talking about? Something about, Kyrgyzstan. It's in Central Asia, all right. So very sparsely populated, right, and still kind of like a Mongolia or a similar place to that. A lot of nomadic peoples still there, right? They live in those yurts. The yurt is basically like those little huts that you see for those nomadic tribes. All of the population in Kyrgyzstan pretty much lives in like 2 cities. So, not as sparse as Mongolia, but it's also a lot smaller than Mongolia. So I'd be interested to see like what the per capita breakdown is, but I didn't do that. Too lazy. So, okay, so this can sub for my ruler, I guess. And being at that crossroads, of course, there's a big Mongolian influence. A lot of Mongols. They're kind of like racially sort of similar people to the Kyrgyz, right? So Kyrgyzstan, the land of the Kyrgyz. And then being right there near Russia as well, the Russians actually annex this territory in 1876, and it's actually ceded to them by China, by the Chinese. So they work out a deal for this land. And kind of before that, Kyrgyzstan, the Kyrgyz people, extremely isolated, just because there's very tall mountain ranges in that Central Asian region. So this kind of provided a natural protection from invasions, but also left the people very isolated, right? So you get protection from invasions, but you're also kind of closed off from a lot of trade and science and all that. So the Russians, they do try to kind of modernize the area, but the Kyrgyz actually have a revolt in 1916 against Tsarist Russia, right? So on the backdrop of World War I, these Kyrgyz are trying to repel their Russian masters. And something like 1/6 of the entire Kyrgyz population is actually killed in this, so not good. Yeah, they get handed to pretty hard by the Russian Empire. And then 1916, what's right around the corner, right? Communism. So the Soviet Union turns this into a Kyrgyzstan SSR. And a lot of the reasons why these people rebelled against the Russians as well was that the Russians were using conscription, right? So you had to serve in the Russian military. This is a kind of a tactic as old as time, where you conquer a people and then use them as instead of killing off your own guys, you send them to do the dirty work. All right, so Kyrgyzstan exists in the Soviet Union until some democracy protests start in 1990, and then in 1991 they get their official independence, right, when the Soviet Union collapses. And the collapse of the Soviet Union offers an awful lot of opportunities for some not very well-intentioned people to kind of start causing mischief with these new states, just like Ukraine, right? So certain parties start taking an interest in this region, in Kyrgyzstan especially, and Kyrgyzstan actually had the same president, right, from pretty much independence until 2005. Askar Akagev, I think. I don't know how to exactly pronounce that, but yeah. So of course that doesn't sit well, right, with the Western world. But again, what does this have to do with us, right? So in 2005, they have what is called the Tulip Revolution, right? So these color revolutions are taking place all over the world, right? Portugal had one. They had the Carnation Revolution. So basically, it's kind of like, let's see, this is kind of hard here. I gotta think a little bit. So kind of like anti-nationalism, anti-fascism, and a lot of them are just anti whatever way the wind's blowing this week, right? So Kyrgyzstan becomes part of that. Their president is ousted, and right, because we got to bring democracy to Kyrgyzstan for some reason, and a lot of these places too, right? There was never a country of Kyrgyzstan. These are nomadic people, right? So they did not develop political sort of institutions, right? So expecting them to function as a state, like a European state in the Westphalian mold, it's kind of ludicrous, to be honest, right? But you got to bring democracy everywhere, right? This is a peak like George Bush era. The neocons are in power, and Akagev, he actually gets refuge in Russia. Putin grants him exile, and he gets brought up on all sorts of charges of corruption and all that. And when you hear corruption, it's just one of those terms that doesn't mean anything, right? It's everybody's corrupt in politics. So he did fight. He tried to stay with his country, and again, it's kind of one of those things where why are you expecting Kyrgyzstan to have respect for free and fair elections and all this stuff? That's something that they never really developed that, right, in that part of the world. It's alien to them. So a lot of paid protesters involved in these protests that kind of led up to the Tulip Revolution. So we know who those are. Lots of violence. A lot of people kind of, they unfortunately died during this, because we just had to install democracy in Kyrgyzstan. And then the new president, right, the one who replaced him, he got 88% of the vote, right? So it was considered free and fair, but right, 88%, right, for who knows, right? When you say that somebody's this crazy authoritarian or something, and you got to go and kind of topple his government and then just say, oh yeah, 88% of the people voted for our guy. kind of makes you think, right? But international community approved the elections. So Kyrgyzstan's had a lot of political turmoil since then. Again, in 2021, they actually voted to give the president more power. So again, this is a country that's not used to, democratic norms and all that stuff. So might be one of those places that actually kind of needs a strong hand. So did you get rid of somebody, kind of like the old story? Did you, or what am I trying to say? Before you knock down a fence or a bridge or whatever that saying goes, you gotta maybe ask why it's there first, right? So that's kind of Kyrgyzstan. That's color revolutions. I don't know when else we would get a chance to talk about those, but I figured Kyrgyzstan would be a good episode for that, because there's really not too much going on outside of that in Kyrgyzstan. But what does the flag mean, James? So we got a red field with a yellow sun, and it's got 40 rays representing the 40 Kyrgyz tribes. I don't think I counted 40. In the center of the sun is a red ring crossed by two sets of lines, and that's a stylized representation of a tunduk. And a tunduk is what's on top of a traditional Kyrgyz yurt. So a yurt is like, again, those little huts that the nomadic people live in. And the red is for bravery and valor, and the sun means peace and wealth. So there you go, everybody. A little lesson on Kyrgyzstan, a little lesson on them color revolutions. And I do like this flag, right? It's pretty unique. It's got a cool little sun design in it. I always like the sun on the flags, but I can always kind of just go in and tighten some stuff up. But I think for the most part, we're done. So let me know what you think. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I will catch you on the next video.